conferences have attracted delegates as varied as CEOs, corporate professionals, housewives, dentists, and scholars from across the globe. Yeah, why not? Housewives are CEOs of the houses, to be fair.
Listen,
you know?
they are the CEOs. Period. Full stop.
Exactly, the ultimate CEOs. And of course, his popular weekly articles are regularly published on well-established outlets, and he has taught a great deal of time management courses amongst the Muslim community across the whole spectrum. And if you've heard of, you would have heard some of the productions that he has worked in. He's one of the coaches in the world who combines cutting-edge productivity systems, scientific habits, and high habit performing and Allah-centered focus courses. So before I tell you all about him, inshallah, he can tell us all about himself. So please welcome to the show, Brother Tushar. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you for having me.
Alhamdulillah. First and foremost, it's a pleasure, and we're honoured that leading pioneer in short habit-breaking formulas. Is that correct?
Right. Well, I mean, at the moment I'm getting certified in something called the Tiny Habits Method by B.J. Fogg. He's one of the world's top behavior scientists, and I'm due to be possibly the only. I'm not sure if I think I'm one of the only Muslim certified coaches on that program, the Tiny Habits Method. And I've just been recently piloting on a course called the Ramadan Habit, where I help 25 Muslims get habits in Ramadan, which inshallah they're going to continue after Ramadan. So alhamdulillah, nearly all of them more or less kept their habit, their Quran habit, their Ibadah habit, their Taraweeh habit, consistent every single day for the program. And yeah, so that's something, that's one part of what I do. But yeah, it's something which I'm quite excited about, teaching tiny habits, teaching Muslims how to, because I think one of the things with habits is that Muslims often beat themselves up a little bit, like, oh, you know, I never get my Quran consistent, I'm not getting my exercise consistent, I'm not getting my ibadah consistent, and we often feel bad about ourselves. And so the approach I teach is how to celebrate small wins. Often there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he says, you know, the best of deeds are those which are regular, even if small. But we often don't know how small to go. And so when you go really small, the beauty of going small is that you feel success. And that's what helps create the momentum for habits. And so we have a whole system which I teach, which helps you breed success, feel successful, and that actually helps your habit carry on.
MashaAllah. Tushar, give me a bit of your background then. What was you doing prior to forming and coaching then?
Sure. So I'm actually from a teaching background. I'm a qualified English teacher, and I've worked extensively in Muslim schools. I'm still a trainer for AMS, Association of Muslim Schools UK, and I've been an assistant head in. I'm from Leicester, so there's lots of great Muslim schools in Leicester. So I've worked in primary and secondary schools as an assistant head, as an English teacher and teacher trainer. I then transitioned into kind of entrepreneurship and tutoring. So I do a lot of tutoring. I run a tutoring agency, High Impact Tutors. And I also have an academy called Shakespeare.
I love it.
I love that.
MashaAllah.
Hello, Shakespeare Shakes.
Sounds
like a milkshake.
But I've always kept that passion of time management. I used to do it as a kind of hobby, similar time when Productive Muslim came around, about 10 years ago. And then I took it really seriously about 1.5 years ago. And alhamdulillah, I've not looked back since. And now I do that full time to the extent that I'm having to delegate my other businesses and outsource them.
Time manage your businesses.
Say it again?
You have to time manage your businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
MashaAllah. It's great having you on, and we will talk a little bit about, I guess, the habits that we create during Ramadan and how we can continue, inshallah. But I do want to ask you, this period of time during lockdown, I imagine your work, you know, maybe it's a bit different. I mean, maybe is webinars and face-to-face through the computer, is that something that you normally do? Or how, I guess also on top of that question is during the lockdown, well, how can we be utilizing this time to form those little habits that you're talking about? So I've got 2 questions in there for you.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, a good time management is, you know, always pre-planned. So I anticipated that question. I got that ready.
MashaAllah.
Alhamdulillah. So no, the first one, alhamdulillah, I'm very blessed during the lockdown period that I had already pivoted to online training. You know, so in my early days, I used to do workshops and, you know, go to cities and things. But I quickly realized that, you know, the time and the effort and the cost to do that, it's much more valuable to go online. So I was already completely online for nearly all 3 of my businesses. And nearly all of my time management training is more or less, you know, one-to-one coaching is online through Zoom or Skype. My webinars are all online. So yeah, alhamdulillah, everything's online. So that's not affected me at all, to be honest. If anything, my business has boomed. So alhamdulillah, that's a blessing from Allah. As for lockdown, I actually there's three kind of tips I have for lockdown. I think one of the most difficult things is the kind of space when work and home life kind of merge, right? And one of the things I get asked about the most is like work-life balance. That's one of the things with my clients I'm constantly advising and helping about. And so when you've got everyone in the home, and I've got a lot of experience with this because I'm already self-employed working in my home anyway. I've been doing that for the last few years, and so I've had a lot of experience in dealing with that. And now everyone's having those same issues. And so one of the biggest challenges is like, your wife comes in and your kids come in, and and you feel like work and life is merged. And so one of the most important things I've said for tip one is to establish your office space, to have a clear, for the one who's working. So I mean this is speaking to those who are working, to establish that office space, make sure it's clearly defined. And secondly, which is linked to that, and this is what most people don't do, is I call it pre-planning, to pre-plan with your spouse, with your family, and to agree and to define, okay, look, this is a work time, daddy's working at this time, you can't go, that's a no-go zone at that point. And agreeing with your wife or your spouse that this is when I'll take the kids, this is when you'll take the kids. Actually sitting down, and ideally I recommend doing it weekly. I call it weekly pre-planning. And it's quite an advanced technique. Most people don't do that, right? But to sit down with your spouse and to plan the week ahead. I'm not saying to plan every single day. I'm saying plan the agreements. Because most disputes are because of lack of mixed expectations, not knowing. You're expecting to work, and your wife says, "No, you've got to look after the little one now." And you didn't. If you can avoid so much stress and so much dispute if you just sit down and discuss it and come to an agreed plan. And my final tip is for the pre-planning one, is to have a very clearly defined work hours. And because this is one of the things when you'll be like self-employed, and self-employed people, entrepreneurs, are notorious for overworking. And what you can easily do is just do that extra email, that extra task, that extra report, and it just bleeds into your home life, and then your home life suffers. Whereas, alhamdulillah, what I've been hearing from a lot of my clients, dentists and businessmen, they've actually got a lot more time on their hands now, and their home life is. I actually think Muslims have done very well in the lockdown. When I speak to non-Muslims, they're very upset, they're stressed. But Muslims, I think, alhamdulillah, are actually embracing the chance to be with their family. And I found with my clients that they're not complaining; they're actually embracing the lockdown and taking advantage of it in a really great way. And so one way to cement that is to make sure you define your work time. You have a strict cut-off time. And ideally have a transitional habit between work and home. That's a separate topic. And so you respect your home life and your family life and your ibadah time as much as you do with your work time. Because we know the Prophet ﷺ, one of the great things about him, he's described as dividing his time into three, right? He had a time, for himself, a time for his family, time for the community, and a time specifically for his Lord. And so we could do well to kind of emulate that sunnah even during COVID time.
Tushar, you know what? Time performance and effective management is the key. I've got one question to ask you before you go, mashallah. I see you're very, very well planned. We've got 20 seconds left in this month of Ramadan. How many iftars did you cook?
You're joking, right?
Of course I'm joking.
Well, I'll give you a clever answer to that.
We're short of time. It's okay. You don't need to answer it. I'm only pulling your leg, mashallah. Have a wonderful, blessed, mashallah, Eid. Thank you so much for coming. We're off for another second break, inshallah. So we look forward to seeing you all soon. Jazakallah khair.